All right, first thing, we are going to turn our main piece right side out. We're leaving the lining inside out for now, so I'm just gonna kind of get all those edges out, flatten it as best that I can. All right, looking pretty cute. Okay, and then our cuff. So we're gonna take this seam here and we're gonna line it up. We're putting the cuff over top of this. So we're putting the main piece inside of your cuff. I'm gonna line up my seams here. Put a little clip here. You can also use a pin like that. Goodness. Sorry for all the jiggling. Just gonna kind of fluff it out so that it all fits in there. All right, this is the true test of making sure that you have accurate seam allowances. Otherwise, one piece is going to be bigger than the other and it will not fit nice and neat inside your circle here. So now I'm going to put this under my foot. I'm going to put my presser foot. It's going to go on the inside of the circle. It's just the easiest way to manage this. And I'm going to sew again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around this piece. It is a tiny little circle. It's probably the most challenging part of this project, if I'm being honest, just because it's so tiny, but you could do it. All right, here we go. Just go nice and slow and just keep working around that circle, making sure that you're not catching any of this other side of the circle into that seam, or you're gonna have to get out the seam ripper, which is okay, but never very fun. So every couple stitches I'm just readjusting to make sure I'm catching my main fabric and the two edges of my cuff. Oops, out. We're almost there. Back stitch and take it out. All right, we're almost done, guys. The next part is to baste this in place so that when you stuff it all in the lining that you don't have to worry about this falling out of place and missing it while you're sewing. So you can do the loop however you want. You can just fold it in half, baste it on like that, or you can overlap them like that so it's that kind of loop. I don't know what you would call that difference, but that's how I like to do it. You are just going to baste it in place right on that corner. So you can stick it in just like that. The trick is just to get that over there without losing your spot. And I'm just going to go over that real quickly. There we go. Now that's on. So now that we have that on there, and yes, is going to feel kind of funny to be sewing that with this hanging down. Once we put this in the lining and inside out it will be pointing up because this is going to get folded in. So with everything, with our raw edge up, the hanging thing pointing down, we are going to stuff that inside of our lining. It's going to feel a little bulky. This is the very last step, and then you are almost done. We're just stuffing it in there, making sure that the toe piece is pointing in the right direction. Again, this is where your seam allowances are super important, because if you did one seam allowance way bigger than the other one, it is not going to fit in here. So you can see mine fits pretty good. I followed my 1/4 inch seam allowances. You can choose to pin to match up your seams if you want. Mine holds in there pretty steady, so I'm just going to leave it as is, and we're just going to again put our presser foot's going to go on the inside of that circle. We're going to sew all the way around, and then we will turn it right side out. So I'm just lining up my seams here. I like to start right on that seam so I can tack it in place so that they line up. Okay, I'm just gonna go real slow. Making sure that I'm getting all my layers. Almost there. Back stitch. And we're done. Alright. So there you have it. So now you can see if you forgot to inside out this, you all of a sudden have a stocking that is not very useful because it is sewn all the way inside out. But because we left that hole, and actually I forgot to clip, I'm going to clip along the edge of here so that it lays nicer, mainly around the curves. Again, don't cut that stitch line or you will have issues. Okay. Alright, so now we find that hole that we left in our lining. We're going to pull everything through that hole so everything is right side out. Gets a little wrinkly, so you can give it a good iron press when you're all done. Alright. Before you tuck your lining piece back into your main, we need to close up this hole. So you could hand stitch that if you wanted an invisible stitch. It's the inside of a tiny little stocking, so I personally don't care if there's a little bit of a stitch showing on the inside. I don't think anyone's going to be looking on the inside that closely. See, this is where my hole is. I'm just going to do a tiny little top stitch right on the edge there to close that up. Don't forget to back stitch. Alright, clip that off. Probably could have gotten a little closer. Oh, here's a good example. So do you see how, because I didn't pull my bobbin thread out, so sometimes it just gets a little nasty, and it's not the end of the world, but if you're top stitching something and you want it to look really nice, you can avoid that. So there's that. Again, I could have probably gotten a little closer to the edge, but that's all right. We're gonna tuck that on the inside, and we are done. We'll give it a little press. Sometimes it's helpful to have like a marker or something to kind of get in there and fluff it out. But there you have it. There is your cute little stocking with your liner and your hanger, so you can see how the hanger is up now. And that's it. Give it a nice little iron to get those wrinkles out, and you did it.